Welcome back. We're getting ready to start this game immediately. We're gonna adjust the scoreboard. And get ready to do it. We're in the grand finals, man. And I'm gonna have to adjust the scoreboard again. It is the finals, best of 3. Katsu. I'm excited. It's gonna be a PVT, I believe. Oh no, it's a PvP, man. I thought CoreaProS was indeed a Terran player, but that is his teammate. There's another pros teammate that I'm thinking about, but I don't know, man. Mental's looking pretty good. He has been getting away with some weird decisions, like, you know, racking up 1,000 gas by 6 minutes, which is not exactly the best way to, you know, do your build orders. But Katsu, man, I'm expecting a great series here.
So am I. I mean, we've seen quite a few ProToss versus ProTosses tonight already, and that's actually a really interesting thing. I don't know if you've noticed, but on the Playhem tournaments, there's always one race that's just, like, predominant. And it depends on the night. Sometimes we've got like 1,000,000 Zerg, sometimes we've got 1,000,000 Terran, and tonight we just had so many ProToss here signing up. And likewise, we've got a ProToss versus ProToss in the finals. CoreaProS, as I mentioned earlier, is apparently a CodeS player. You know, he doesn't want to reveal his identity. So, I mean, who is it? It's Korea spelt with a C. So maybe
it's Soria.
Maybe it's Huck.
Maybe it's
because he's Canadian
MC.
but living in Korea, so he starts the Korea with a C.
Ah.
No, I don't think it's him because he's been speaking a lot of Korean, and though I think Huck's Korean is starting to come along, I don't think it's that good just yet.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of tears are being
Yeah,
shed.
they're not happy, man.
And you know, they're actually like, I don't even know. They're just having fun. These guys obviously know each other. Koreans are actually pretty well known in terms of the tight network. Good players in Korea are actually heard of each other a lot. So, and Mentalist, he's been winning a lot of Playhem dailies in the past, but then he went kind of through a dry spell. He kind of went through a period where he wasn't really doing much, but I think he's starting to really discover himself. And 57, of course, making big splashes in the scene. Crazy moving, did get to Code A, but he was promptly taken out, I believe, by OGS, or sorry, Liquid Hero. Wow, not OGS anymore. CoreaProS, I'm so intrigued, man. You said he's Code S player, but I don't know who he is. Is it, I mean, how many players do we know? Puzzle, we have
C.
We have, Sage isn't Code S, right? We have Oz, who was Code S, Killer, who was Code S as well. Lots of great players. You know, I watched that series between. I really wanted Songho to advance forward because I agree. I think he's gotten so much better. I agree with Artosis, but he just got outplayed ever so slightly. So Songho breaking my heart, but it's good, man. We got.
He's been around forever.
I know he's been around forever, and I mean, if you watched the Nesty Huck game, that was also kind of weird yesterday night. Did you watch it or hear about it at all?
What's that? Sorry.
The Huck versus Nesty game yesterday?
Yeah, man. Like, I heard that there was so much talk about it, so I made sure to go watch that right before the cast. And, I mean, what are you doing, Nesty? You're a pro gamer, and you can't get drunk the night before you're playing Huck. This kid is good.
Yeah.
And so's MMA. Like, that was a group of death. Everyone was saying it.
It's a very, very hard to get group to get out of, and I mean that's just frankly the level of talent that's really getting into CodeS. So we'll have to check back in there. But in the meantime, we have 2 players equivalent in skill, in terms of just being able to get out. Both players going for double stalkers off of 2 gates. The only difference is Mentalist is gearing up to expand behind this, and I'm not exactly sure if CoreaProS is doing the same exact thing. Although, I mean, at this point he is saving up a lot of resources as well. Now, the thing about the 2-gate aggression, or 2-gate build, is that you can shut down that early probe trying to go for, you know, a forward pylon, but you have to be very careful and diligently scouting about it. Now, I'm not exactly sure how Mentalist is gonna get away with this. It is a very extremely greedy build indeed. I mean, 2 gates, you can get overwhelmed very, very easily in about 30 seconds, but, I don't know, man.
Luckily for him, CoreaProS is going for basically the exact same build. We do have a bit of an engagement here in the middle, and so far CoreaProS has been actually, he's falling a bit behind here, man. It is evening out quite nicely. Both players here down to just 2 stalkers, but of course here, Mentalist is falling back to his pylons, whereas Korea does not have any proxy pylon anywhere near, so he's not going to be able to reinforce just as effectively. And we're going to see a nice transition into the mid-game here for both of these players, because they went for a 2-gate, so they didn't invest into a ton of gateways, so they can transition into literally anything they want. And that's going to make for a really nice PvP here. And most ProToss players don't actually have a good understanding of late game PvP, since it does tend to be such quick games, a lot of one-base play, and we're going to have to see here who does have that better knowledge. We see that both of our players here going for some robotics facilities.
Yeah. Followed up by gateways from CoreaProS. I'm just going to call him Code S player, because I really don't know who it is. It's really bothering me. I'm trying to think. Someone in the chat pointed out it could be Oz, MC, or Puzzle. Those are one of the few remaining Code S players, but they're doing the exact same build, 5 gateways and a robotics, which is actually good. And that does point out that you actually want to go for Colossus if you grab all your gases, because it gives you enough flexibility to do something in terms of being able to grab, you know, your gases and still be able to tech a little bit. But both players going for Immortals as well. Not exactly sure what the plan is on the map, because both players playing pretty passive here. But just like you said, Mental is just ever so slightly ahead at this point, because he did get his Nexus down a little bit earlier. This just means that he has that small little production advantage. But for the most part, both players pretty even at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it is still like 6 extra, make that 7 extra probes right now for Mentalist, because he's actually using his Chrono Boost on those Nexus, whereas we see CoreaProS, he's Chrono Boosting out an Observer right now, not quite using his Chrono Boost the same way. And, I mean, it can be good, but if you're going to be using your Chrono Boost on things like units, you really got to make sure that you're actually going for a timing where that's going to be effective, not just trying to get early units out and then not using them. And, I mean, we do see now CoreaProS is moving out onto the map. He's got, as I say this, 3 extra Zealots, but is behind a Stalker, and there's 2 extra Sentries out for Mentalist. So he's actually in a pretty good position here. He's going to be able to put down, he's got enough energy for 3 Force Fields, so he will be able to put down 3 Force Fields on this ramp and cut off CoreaProS' army. So hopefully for our Code S player here, he doesn't actually get too aggressive, because if he does, he is going to regret it quite quickly.
Yeah, and looks like both players are exactly going for that Colossus build that I thought they were doing. And the whole idea is that 5 gates plus Colossus gives you room to actually make Stalkers, because you don't want to max on your Zealot production with just Colossus. That's a very fragile composition. So, you know, he will be able to do that. But look at this. Mentalist is going for a 3rd Nexus. And he's moving out here. Super risky play from both players here. CoreaProS moving out without his Colossus. He invests so much in Colossus. Why would you move out there and go for an attack without your tech units? He is going for double forges, though, using those minerals instead of expanding to go for 2 upgrade tech buildings. This is where they're starting to deviate a little bit here, Katu.
Yeah, double forge, and look at this, holy crap, we got double forge going down for Mentalist as well. Like, I don't know, are they both watching the stream? Because we saw the robotics facility go down a bit earlier for, rather the robotics bay go down a bit earlier for Mentalist, and then we saw it get followed up by Korea, and then we have the double forge go down for Korea, followed up slightly later by Mentalist. This is unbelievable, Frodon. Now, of course, Mentalist, he snuck out those earlier probes, so he has a bit more cash. He's able to get down this Nexus a bit quicker. And, I mean, this is actually going to end up being a tight spot for Korea, as he's going to be down a base with essentially the exact same thing as his opponent.
Yeah, there is going to be a small timing window where actually Korea could still bust in through, because Mentalist did probe up very significantly, which means that the supply difference actually is purely an army. So it actually still comes down to engagement. Korea also going for those double forge upgrades, but just like you said, just being able to produce.
The window's right now.
Yeah, the window's right now. I'm just saying, just like you said.
And he's not moving out just yet.
Yeah.
So, like, that window, every second that goes by, it's closing. The income right now of Mentalist is a substantial amount higher. He's getting an extra 300 to 400 minerals per minute. And I know that doesn't seem like much, but that's while he's still transferring and making some probes. So that gap is just going to widen. And we see that right now, Korea has about a 20 supply lead. But if we keep in Army lead, that is. And if we keep an eye on it, though, that is just going to get smaller and smaller. And, I mean, it's honestly just not looking good for him right now.
The key to the third base is actually the gas, because it allows him to get out even more tech
for sure.
things as well. So, I mean, not only just minerals, Katsu, which is a great point, but even just being able to really get out more gas. That means he can get Colossi out. That means he can get upgrades as well, and even make tech units. Because normally, again, if you spend so much on tech, you're really going to have a lot of zealots to look at it. CoreaProS has an influx of minerals, and as a result, he's getting zealots, which honestly don't add too much utility unless you get an overwhelming number and you really have them synergize well with force fields, or you have them, you know, really get a good flank or something, because they just don't do that much DPS. They take so much front AoE damage from the Colossi here, so has to be really careful. CoreaProS, I mean, he's 2-basing for a while, and this is where, you know, the macro is going to definitely come into play. I don't think Mentalist is going to push out until he has a good number of Colossi, because he does have double robotics, and it gets to the point where, you know, you're always thinking, man, I can always add on another Colossus and another Colossus. And at this point, you're just like, okay, I'm just going to wait till I'm maxed. And that's actually the safe play here, because Mentalist is also setting up for a quick remax with a lot of gateways and even a Templar Archives. Yeah.
That's exactly right. You just summed up the entire game for us. We can just go on to the next one. Because, like Mentalist here, he's closing that gap here with Korea, and he's going to have so many extra Colossus because of that second robotics. And, oh, man, he's taking a gold base now. So with those extra Colossus, these Zealots here of Korea that are taking up so much supply, because I've actually stopped looking at the supply count for the army and instead gone to the army value, and we see that they are neck and neck. Slightly less mineral dependent here is like you said, because of those extra gases. Mentalist not as mineral dependent. He's got more tech units in his army, and it's just like tons and tons of zealots here for Korea. He's got 35 zealots out right now. Like, that's unbelievable, Frodon, and I mean, that's just easy peasy cannon fodder for these Colossus.
Yeah, Zealot's actually probably the easiest unit to counter in PvP. They're really good against Stalkers, but that's about it, and Immortals. But, I mean, Archons, other Zealots, Sentries, Colossi, Void Rays, Phoenixes, you name it, those things can all really hold their own against massive amounts of Zealots as long as you have the good engagements. Mentalist also has a superior Colossus count. Should start to spread out his units. Doesn't want to clump them up too much, but again, looks like both players playing extremely passive, waiting for their +3 armor and weapons to finish as well, I guess. CoreaProS picking his timing. He's maxed out. Now keep in mind, maxed armies versus maxed army, it's all about the engagement positioning. It doesn't necessarily depend a lot on the unit composition necessarily in PvP. He's going to go for a 3-prong attack. Looks like the Colossi are pretty much preoccupied here. And this is actually a superior concave here for CoreaProS. Oh no, Mentalist caught completely off guard. Oh my goodness, what has Mentalist done? Oh no, Katu. He's losing a lot here. Mentalist had such a
better army, but he was completely clumped up. And that means that the splash damage here of the Colossus, which were in smaller number from Korea, they just did way more damage. All of the units of Mentalist were clumped up. Meanwhile, Korea actually attacked up 3 different ramps in that engagement. That is how spread out his army was, and that's that, man. It's going to be almost impossible here for Mentalist to actually get back into this game from this point on. He was able to save a couple of Colossus, just 2, but he lost all his Stalkers, he lost his Sentries. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, the Colossus advantage is very overwhelming, and the most important thing is that CoreaProS is actually even on bases, but he actually has a slight resource advantage because he hasn't been mining as much. And so, I mean, that's actually another thing to keep in mind. Although Mentalist, he's not out of it just yet. He does have some Templars warping in, and Archons are kind of like a wild card. But it gets to the point where if you have so many Colossus, everything on the ground dies, and that's why sometimes players transition into air and get Void Rays. But it depends exactly on your composition and your idea of how you want to move around the map. CoreaProS is taking out these rocks, and I don't think Mentalist can do anything to stop him. He does have 4 Colossus, but there are 7 out here for CoreaProS, and that is almost too much here.